Hello, good evening to everyone. Today we shall discuss the assumptions, limitations, and importance of the law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. Yesterday, I taught in detail about the explanation of law of equimarginal utility with the help of arithmetic table and diagram. So today we shall start with the assumptions of law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. You know that every law is based on some assumptions. We have to take some conditions for the operation of the law of equimarginal utility. So, what are the assumptions to the law of consumer's equilibrium? The law is based on the following assumptions. Number one, the consumer is rational. Our consumer must be rational. What does it mean? It means he aims at the maximization of satisfaction or utility. A rational consumer, a normal consumer always tries to maximize his utility. This is the first assumptions. Second one is utility is measurable. That means for the operation of the law, utility should be measurable. Third one, the law of diminishing marginal utility operates. We have got the law of equimarginal utility because of the operation of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Therefore, we have to assume that the law of diminishing marginal utility operates. Fourth one is prices of the commodities are given and remain constant. That means prices of different commodities should not change. It should be known to the consumer, it should be given and remain constant. Fifth one is that utility can be measured in terms of money. We can measure the utility in terms of money. So, these are the assumptions for the operation of law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. Now, we shall switch over to limitations of the law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. What are the limitations to this law? We shall discuss them in detail one by one. First one is that this law is not applicable to free goods. So, the law of equimarginal utility or consumer's equilibrium will not operate in case of free goods. You know what is free goods? Free goods are those goods which are available without any price. These are the free gifts of nature. Therefore, in case of free goods, one does not compare the marginal utility of free goods with other goods. So we need not have to compare the marginal utility of free goods with marginal utilities of other goods, because we do not pay anything for free goods. Therefore, we need not have to compare the marginal utility of free goods with the other goods. So, in case of free goods, our law does not operate. Second limitation is that irrationality or ignorance of the consumer. Irrationality or ignorance of the consumer. For the operation of this law, the consumer has to calculate the marginal utilities of different commodities he wants to consume or purchase and compare them. What our law of equi-marginal utility says, a consumer gets maximum satisfaction or will be in equilibrium when marginal utilities of different commodities he consumes are equal. Therefore, to get this law, the consumer has to calculate the marginal utilities of different commodities he wants to consume and compare them to make them equal. But in reality, the mind of the consumer is neither a calculating machine nor a computer while making purchase. Our mind is not a calculator or nor a computer. We are guided by impulse of the movements. Therefore, he is always interested to buy cheap goods. Again, so what is our natural behavior? What is the natural behavior of the consumer? We are always interested to purchase cheaper goods. जो सस्ता होता है उसको हम खरीदने के लिए चाहते हैं. So he is always interested to buy cheap goods. Again, in the imperfect market, our market is imperfect market. He doesn't know the price of the commodity in the market. What is the real price of the commodity? We do not know. The consumer does not know, because price of a commodity differs from place to place, market to market. So, because of this ignorance, he cannot make a rational calculation of marginal utilities of different commodities and compare them to make them equal, because our mind is neither a calculating machine nor a computer. Again, we do not know the real price of a commodity. Therefore, due to this ignorance, a consumer cannot make a rational calculation of marginal utilities of different commodities and compare to make them equal. So, due to irrationality or ignorance of the consumer, the law is difficult to operate. Then come to third limitations of the law. Slave of customs, habit and advertisements. Slave of customs, habits and advertisement. अगर हम प्रथा या कस्टम्स, हैबिट, अभ्यास और एडवर्टाइजमेंट का दास हो जाएंगे तो दिस लॉ will not operate. When a consumer buys commodities, he becomes the victim of custom, habit and advertisement. So when we purchase goods and services, we become the victim of custom, habit and advertisement. For example, if he is habituated to smoke cigarettes, एक आदमी का सिगारेट पीने का लत हो गया है, the marginal utility of cigarette will be more than the marginal utility of food, because if a person is really habituated to smoke cigarette, he is more interested to smoke cigarette than to take food. So he is interested to spend more and more on cigarette than on food. So here the marginal utilities of cigarette and marginal utility of food cannot be made equal. Therefore, this law will be difficult to operate if the consumer is the prey. Prey means victim. Prey, prey of habits. Similarly, if the consumer is the victim of custom, if a consumer is Hindu, then he has to purchase coconut to pray, pray Lord Ganesh in Ganesh Chaturthi, whatever may be the price of the coconut. So here, marginal utility and price of the coconut may not be equal, because it is our customer to take coconut for worshipping Lord Ganesh. We have to purchase the price, whatever may be the price of the coconut. So here price may be greater than its marginal utility, but we have to purchase. Therefore, if the consumer is the victim of custom, habit, advertisement, etc., then marginal utilities cannot be made equal and the law is difficult to operate. For limitation, indivisible commodities. What is indivisible commodity? You know that indivisible commodity means which give us satisfaction for a long period of time and we cannot divide them. For example, car. Can you divide a car? If we divide a car, will it be a car anymore? No. Your TV set. Can you divide your TV set? Not at all. So in case of indivisible goods like car, TV, dresses, etc., they give us utility for a long period of time. And in case of indivisible commodities, the law does not operate because the marginal utility of a rupee from durable commodity like car cannot be compared with the marginal utility of food which is divisible. So, I have already told you a car will give us satisfaction for a long period of time, but marginal utility of food, any food we are taking, it will give us satisfaction for once. Therefore, we cannot compare the marginal utility of a rupee between car and marginal utility of food and compare them. Therefore, in case of indivisible commodities, our law is difficult to operate. So again, measurability of utility. We have assumed that unless and until we measure utility, we cannot define or explain law of equi-marginal utility. But you know that in reality, utility is a subjective concept. It is a state of feeling by the consumer, and we are not in a position to measure in terms of number of the utility. Therefore, utility is always a subjective concept. One can feel the utility but cannot measure it. So in reality, we cannot measure the utility, therefore this law is difficult to operate. In spite of all these limitations, the law is of immense helpful to the consumers because by following this rule, by following the principles of law of consumer's equilibrium, a consumer always tries to maximize his satisfaction while purchasing goods and services. Though it has so many limitations, but in reality, in practice, it is very, very important law for us. So, these are the limitations of the law of equi-marginal utility. Now come to the importance of the law. What are the importance of the law? The law is of universal application. It is, this law is applicable everywhere. That is why I told you that no doubt it has so many limitations, but it is of immense help for the human being, for the consumer, for the society, for the government, for everyone. So, we shall discuss here some of the importance of the law of equi-marginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. The law is of universal application. Number one, consumption. What are the importance of this law for consumption? You know that consumer has limited income and unlimited commodity to consume or purchase. I have already told you, human wants are unlimited, but the means to satisfy the unlimited wants are always limited. We have limited resources but unlimited wants. So, we have limited income but unlimited commodities to consume or purchase. Therefore, what a consumer does, so he goes and substituting one commodity for another. Therefore, what the consumer does, he goes and substituting एक के बदले दूसरा. He goes and substituting one commodity for another till the marginal utilities of different commodities he consumes are equal to maximize his satisfaction. I have also already told you that this law is known as law of substitution. As because we cannot purchase everything we want because we have limited money income. Therefore, what the consumer does, he goes and substituting one commodity for another till the marginal utilities of different commodities he consumes are equal to maximize his satisfaction. So, this is of prime importance for us because how a consumer will consume so that he will get maximum satisfaction. So, it is most important for the consumer for consumption of different goods and services. Second one is production. For producers also, this law is very important for the producers. You know that by following this rule, the producer will go on substituting the cheap factors of production for costlier factors. What the producer does, he will go on substituting the cheaper factors of production for costlier till marginal productivities from different factors are equal. So here, what is the equilibrium point for a producer? A producer will be in equilibrium when he gets maximum profit. I have taught you this in the previous classes. So, how he can achieve maximum profit by equating the marginal productivities of different factors of production. Therefore, by following this rule, he will go on substituting cheaper factors of production for कॉस्टलियर फैक्टर्स के बदले क्या सब्स्टिट्यूट करते जाएगा? चीपर फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन टिल मार्जिनल प्रोडक्टिविटी फ्रॉम different factors are equal to reduce the cost of production and to maximize profit. So when he is able to make equal of the marginal productivities of different factors of production with the process of substitution, then his cost of production will reduce and he will get maximum profit. Therefore, it is very important for the producer to get maximum profit by following the law of equi-marginal utility, or so to say consumer's equilibrium or law of substitution. Then come to the third importance of this law, distribution. Distribution is most important in economics. Here we study how the prices of factors of production, you know that there are 4 factors of production like land, labor, capital and entrepreneur. What are the rewards of the factors of production? The rewards are rent for land, wages for labor, interest for capital and profit for entrepreneur. So how the prices of factors of production like rent, wages, interest and profit are determined? That is the subject matter of distribution, and it can be easily determined with the help of law of equi-marginal utility or consumer's equilibrium. By the process of distribution, the factors will be so employed. The employer, the producer, the employer will employ the factors so that marginal productivity of different factors are equalized. So here, by following the process of distribution का प्रोसेस फॉलो करके the employer will distribute the factors or employ the factors in such a manner that marginal productivity of different factors are equalized, so that distribution process will be easier and there will be equitable distribution. Next, importance public finance. You know that public means government. It is the finance of the government. Public finance means finance of the government. It studies the income, expenditure and debt management of the government. So, here also, in case of public finance also, the law is much more useful and helpful. For example, while imposing taxes, the finance minister of the country imposes taxes. And what kind of tax rate is there in India? It is progressive rate of taxation. So while imposing taxes, the government see that this utility of the tax becomes equal to rich and poor. तो गवर्नमेंट क्या देखेगा? रिच भी टैक्स देता है, मिडिल क्लास भी देता है, पुअर भी देता है, टैक्स देता है. So tax rate should be such that this utility, क्योंकि टैक्स देने के लिए किसी को भी एंजॉयमेंट नहीं मिलता. टैक्स देना पेनफुल है. इट क्रिएट्स दिस यूटिलिटी. तो गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगा? बाय फॉलोइंग दिस लॉ देखेगा जैसे दिस यूटिलिटी फ्रॉम रिच, पुअर, मिडिल क्लास सबका क्या होना चाहिए? बराबर होना चाहिए. Therefore, by following this law, the government imposes progressive rate of taxation and see that this utility of the tax becomes equal to rich and poor. So, the rich have to pay more taxes than the poor. Then only the this utility becomes equal. And social welfare will increase. And the last importance is that planning. You know that in India, since independence from 1951, the government of India always formulate 5-year planning for the development, for the growth of the economy. So to formulate 5-year plans, this law is followed by the planners. This law is followed by the planners, planning committee to formulate 5-year plans. Whether a country should encourage consumption or saving, or will produce more of consumer goods or capital goods, will be determined by the law of maximum social advantage. This is nothing but the additional version of Law of Equi-Marginal Utility. So, the planners would see that whether the country should save more or consume more, whether the country should produce more of consumer goods or capital goods, all will be determined by the law of maximum social advantage. That means जहाँ जो करने से मैक्सिमम सोशल एडवांटेज मिलता है, प्लानर्स लोग प्लान करके उसी चीज को प्लानिंग में डालेंगे। Therefore, the law of equimarginal utility is of immense help to each and every sector of the economy and the society as a whole. So, the law is of universal application. So, this much for today. Thank you all. We shall discuss with a new chapter, that is demand, in our upcoming classes. Thank you.